Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I could not be happier to bring to you our guest today. Scott MacGregor is the founder and CEO of SomethingNew, founder of the Outlier Project, four-time author of the Standing O series, a record 8-time consecutive American Business Awards winner for innovation, best of staffing winner with a net promoter score of 94.4%, where the average industry rate is 28%, a contributor to Forbes, a business advisory board member for the Rich Cardona Media College, advisory for the Harvard Business Review, LinkedIn Hiring Advisors member, nonprofit advisory board member for the Look Good Project, and I could go on and on and on. And oh, by the way, he hung out with Barry Manilow in Vegas and has only called in sick 5 times in his career. Welcome to the show, Scott MacGregor. So happy.
Lyndsay, that is one heck of an introduction. I was like, that's wow. All right.
I mean, it's all
Thank
true.
you.
So it's very exciting. So the first question I always ask on my show, for those that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit of your story?
Yeah, so I've had an interesting life. I grew up poor in a very affluent town, which is an interesting way to grow up. It's funny because later on in life, I became chairman of the board for Elevate New York in the South Bronx. And the interesting thing was the kids in the South Bronx didn't necessarily know that maybe they were a little bit economically disadvantaged because everyone around them was exactly like them. For me, it was very different. It was very obvious that we were kind of the family in town that didn't quite have what everybody else did. But sports leveled the playing field. I wound up having a pretty significant back injury, which put my sports career to an end. And I just took all of that desire and passion and dedication and hard work and put it into business and went on to have some success at a couple different stops. And then 9 years ago, started a company called SomethingNew. And then a couple of years ago, started a pretty large community called the Outlier Project. So that's just a tiny bit.
That's a tiny bit. I mean, you really teased us on that. So let's dig in a little bit on Something New. What is it? What does it do?
So as a chief revenue officer, I was 29 years old working at a Fortune 500 company, and I get a call from a recruiter, and they said there's a startup looking for a chief revenue officer. I was 29. I'm like, wow, that sounds amazing. So little did I know, well, I found out pretty quickly, there were 5 people in the entire company, and there was no sales, no marketing, and no client success. I had to build it from scratch, but we built that from 5 people to 300. Nice. And during the course of, pretty significant growth and lots of hires, I felt that the recruiters in particular that I was working with just weren't bringing to the table what I thought they should. And I thought, man, the most important piece of any company are their people. And I really was not getting the support. I was just kind of getting bodies thrown at me. And I thought, man, there's got to be a better way. I know I could build a better mousetrap. This is the embarrassing part. So I drew up a business plan that I sat on for 10 years. And finally, my wife, Meg, said, Scott, this is all you think about, talk about, work on in your spare time. Just do it. So 9 years ago, I started the company SomethingNew. We've won 8 consecutive American Business Awards for innovation, which is a record. Although I would say nothing we do is rocket science, it's definitely very, very different in the talent space. And you had mentioned in the intro, the net promoter score. We're obviously giving the market something that they crave, and that they're, for whatever reason, seem to get anywhere else. So it's been a fun ride.
So it's a staffing company. So you help people that, right?
Sort of. So I think, that I think I don't know if it's a parable or a proverb. It's probably a parable. The teach a man to fish,
Yes.
give a man to a
Yeah.
fish. So I view the recruiting part, finding somebody, the person that they need, that's like giving somebody a fish. But teaching somebody to fish, which is teaching companies, in particular, small, early stage, hyper growth startups, how to do talent acquisition, onboarding, and retention the right way. That's giving them something that will allow them to sustain their success over a long period of time. So that's a big part of what we do, is that advisory piece of really helping people understand how to get the foundation set up right. And then, yes, do we find them the people we need? Absolutely. But it's really a mix of advisory and then that, very tactical, like I need a chief marketing officer, then we do that.
So how important, as you know, this show is a lot about leadership and culture. So how important is the culture match for the candidate and the company? And is that something that you help organizations understand or dive in on?
100%. Culture, it's interesting because culture, we vet about 10,000 people a year as a company, which is a fair amount of people. I would say there's only one common denominator. Not every single candidate out there wants to maximize their income. Not every single candidate wants to, be in a position where they can grow and climb the corporate ladder. Every single person we talk to wants to work in a good culture. It's
Do you hear
hard
that,
to
everybody?
find.
That's really important. I think that's the missing piece. And I think the best people in that space are the ones that are more matchmakers than just plugging holes. Yep. And making sure that you understand who that person is, what their motivations are, and is it a good fit for the company and the mission that they have? Because so often it's not. And my own experience was a perfect example of that. I am not a micromanager. I believe in giving my people autonomy, and that is not what the last company I was at valued at all. Yeah. So it was not a good fit. They fired me. So we don't want to see that.
Yeah, companies are funny. They throw a lot of stuff at employees to kind of almost assimilate what looks like a good culture. They'll put in the proverbial ping pong table, foosball
the
table,
perks, mistaking snacks. Perks for culture. Yeah.
I call it cultural Febreze.
Yep.
So it's just surface level stuff, but that's not really what makes a great culture. What makes a great culture is really developing people, pouring into them, not just, giving them a bevy of snacks to choose from or catering a breakfast.
Yeah.
There's so many other things that you need to do to develop a really good culture. So yes, it's a big piece of our matchmaking. And also because we focus on smaller hyper growth startups, oftentimes people, and you came from a big company in IBM, like people could be wildly successful in an environment like IBM and really struggle in a small startup. So we're very cognizant of the fact that, even though they might be a high performer at a big company, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll be a high performer in kind of the chaotic world of a startup.
Well, and you're spot on. I think when, so often you see people leave really large companies, jump into the entrepreneurial life. I mean, I'm living proof of this. I built so many first of a kind businesses for IBM. Those skills don't necessarily transfer to being an entrepreneur. And so it's a different skill set. It's a different mindset. And you really have to dig deep and figure out how to fill the gaps that you have. So let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about the Outlier Project. What is it? Why do people join it? And what does it do?
So I'm a big believer that, you only live once. We're only here for a short period of time. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people sleepwalk through life. And that dash between the two dates is not as impactful and meaningful as it could be. So I want to live an extraordinary life. And I think there are a lot of people out there that want to live an extraordinary life. And the best way to do that, I believe, is to surround yourself with amazing people and give yourself very, very unusual experiences. So that's what the Outlier Project caters to, is people that believe that anybody can be ordinary, but we all have the power to choose to be extraordinary. And so I've always been a big relationship guy, and I've developed these crazy relationships with amazing people throughout my life. It could be a Navy SEAL like Jason Redman. It could be an Olympic gold medalist like Brandy Chastain. It could be a pro football player like Tiki Barber. It could be a CEO like Jesse Itzler. What is interesting is that as I've developed friendships with them, I've always asked them, have there been people that were smarter than you, tougher than you, more athletically gifted? The answer for all of these people that have achieved unbelievable success is yes.
Yeah.
There's lots of people that were much better than me, but they never made the choices to be extraordinary. And all of those people that I just mentioned and many more, they made choices that led to their extraordinary accomplishments. And so I think when you realize that living an extraordinary life is a choice, it's like, wow, I don't have to be born a certain way. Like I can choose that. That's pretty cool. So that's what we're trying to do through the Outlier Project. It's grown like crazy, 700 members in 34 countries. And it's just fun. It's pure fun. I love it.
And you have one rule. What's your one rule for members?
Yeah, you can't be an asshole. So you've got to have a people over everything mindset.
Yep.
You've got to be somebody who wants to lift up other people and support them. That's very, very important. So fortunately, we've got a community that is super tight and is very, very engaged. So I think those people don't really gravitate towards us, or they very quickly would figure out, okay, this is probably not the place for me, and would self-select to leave the group.
And what can people expect when they join the Outlier Project?
A ton of fun. So we do everything. I mean, it's the Outlier Project, so we can't do anything ordinary. So everything we do is different. We have 200 live interactive events a year because, for instance, we've got Rudy, the real Rudy from the movie, Daniel Rudiger, coming up. And I just think it's a cool experience. It's one thing to see Rudy on stage. It's another thing to maybe watch the movie or listen to him on a podcast. But what we're going to give people is the opportunity to actually interact with him and ask him questions directly, and have a little bit of back and forth with somebody as iconic as Rudy, or the Jesse Itzlers of the world, or Dick Vermeil, or this person or that person. So lots of live interactive events with amazing people from every domain you can imagine, and then a lot of in-person get-togethers that again are unusual. We just went skating in Rockefeller Center, which was a ton of fun. We're going to Nicaragua on a humanity expedition coming up in February. We're going to the 150th Kentucky Derby. We're going to the US Open. We have a retreat every year that's kind of off the charts. So we do a lot of very unique, I would say we're probably the most unique membership community.
Attention, visionary leaders. Are you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together.
This is no knock against SHRM, but SHRM is like for HR people, and
Sure.
it's all packed with HR people. This is an eclectic membership of people that just they want to live an extraordinary life and they want to do cool stuff.
Well, I have so many friends in the Outlier Project, and I would totally agree. They are heart-centered by nature. They are super supportive of each other, and it's always a joy just to watch what you're doing and see how much good you put out into the world. I think it's so, so important. And I put you in the category of my culture crusaders and the people that are really trying to model leadership and model good behavior of the possible and how life should feel and should look. Because there's
Thank you.
enough.
And you're doing the same through your podcast. I mean, your
Trying,
podcast is
man.
amazing and
Thanks.
you're highlighting all the right things. And, as more and more people are listening to your message, I think you're starting to have that ripple effect that we all
Brilliant.
want to make positive change.
Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, it was so important to me when I built this show that I was painting pictures of what good leadership looks like, feels like, what good culture feels like, and why it's important and the impact
Yep.
that it has. And not just that, but the resilience that people um, have to get through. I mean, the stories that have been on the show are just mind
Yeah.
blowing and gut wrenching and funny and all the things. So thank you for saying that. It's a total joy to do it. And like you, I've curated this, posse of amazing people that have been on the
Yeah.
show. And it's just such a joy to now be able to call them friends. So I love that. So what is next for you?
I've got two more books coming out this year,
Of
so I'm
course you do.
excited about that. So
Let's talk about the books. Yeah,
the
let's
fifth
talk.
book in the Standing O series. So I giving back is very important to me. And one of the ways that I do that is I put out these books called Standing O, where I ask friends of mine to write a chapter of gratitude for a life lesson learned. Then I put it in a book and we give all the money to charity. So we've got our next book, Standing O Honor, coming out. All the proceeds are going to Jason Van Camp's nonprofit called Warrior Rising. And I'm really, really excited about that. And then I have another book coming out about relationships called Who's Your Oprah.
Ah, awesome. I love it. Well, you can see the books in the background there, so I love that you do that. And what a great way to write books and have, I mean, I'm a storyteller, so for me, I love that. So that's fantastic. So tell me what inspires you?
I get inspired really by other people, watching other people go through life and navigate difficult situations. I'm just consistently amazed by people's resiliency.
Yeah.
Friends of mine like, Amberly Lago, who, got into a horrific motorcycle accident and how she's just persevered. Jason Redmond, who was, shot in the face in combat. He was a Navy SEAL. And just all these people that have overcome so many things. It's so inspiring
Yeah.
to see this healthy mindset that they have and this no victim mentality in
Yeah.
a world where it could be very easy. I mean, we all go through adversity.
Yeah.
And so it would be very easy for anybody to take on that shield of being a victim.
Mhm.
And it's almost intoxicating to be a victim because then you don't have to take responsibility for anything. So I'm inspired by people that take responsibility for their own life,
Mhm.
say this is my life and my life is the culmination of all these decisions that I make every single day. And whether I was wounded in combat or whether my sports career ended with an injury or whether I got fired from a job or whatever it is, they persevered through those things. So those people inspire the heck out of me.
That inspires me too, and that's why I
Yeah,
did this show. The whole show is about that. So
right.
I love that. That's amazing. And I mean, you're deep into this question now, but what would you like your legacy to be?
It's pretty simple. It's impact.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, no one is going to care or remember the companies I work for, the companies I started, the car I drove, the house I live in. like none of that stuff matters. What will matter and what has some legacy to it is the impact that I can make.
Yeah.
So every day I'm very, very intentional
Mhm.
on trying to make a positive impact because I know that there's a ripple effect. And I think too often people either think, well, I don't have enough power, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough of these things to make an impact. And it's just not true. If
Yeah.
you impact one person, it has that ripple effect. And so that really is it. It's impact for me is something I think about every day. It was our word last year.
Yeah.
So we always focus on one word. Our word this year is purpose, but our word last year and probably the word for my life would be impact.
I love that. And you're well on your way. You're making such a big impact wherever you
Thank you.
go and with everything that you do. So thank you for that. And I think purpose is a brilliant word. That's actually a word that I use a lot in terms of leadership, because when leaders can provide their team's purpose, why we're doing the work we're doing, it makes it more meaningful. It makes them more engaged. It makes them feel like I'm rowing the boat towards something versus I'm just doing a job.
Yeah.
And I think acting and behaving with purpose, if you're aligned with your heart, is always a good thing. So
It
I
gives you direction. It gives
it
you kind of
does.
that North Star. So you always are,
Yeah.
every decision you make is like, okay, does this serve kind of the purpose that I'm going after? And it makes decision making so much easier because so many times like we're doing shit and we're like, why am I doing this?
Oh,
Like, I don't
yeah.
wait a second.
Yeah.
This is not aligned with what I think my
Yeah.
purpose in life is.
But I think that's such a common thing that I see in corporate America. Like they make their mission statement, they veer so far away from it. And it's not until you really pull back the veil and you say, okay, let's talk about our culture. If this is our mission statement, what are we doing over here? And it takes a really wise, humble leader to recognize we have to make some changes. We are not living what we said we would.
Right.
And that is a brave leader that can do that. And I challenge every leader out there listening to make sure that you are aligned with that mission, because it's easy to get caught up in the day to day and the nonsense and get off track.
Yeah,
So,
I think too often mission statements and things like that are really just for public
yep,
consumption. And it's like,
agreed.
how is this going to look on our website? And when people read this, are they going to go, oh wow,
Yeah,
that's great. But if it doesn't align with what's in your heart,
yep.
you're never going to do the things that you need to do to
I
support
agree.
that. And at the end of the day, at some point you get exposed and then you look like a fraud.
Yep.
So
Or
it
you lose
it
your best people and your people
100%.
suffer and your results will suffer and
Yep.
it goes on and on. So, Scott, where can people find you?
LinkedIn is really the best place. I have not mastered Instagram. I'm on Instagram, so you can find me there as well. But LinkedIn is definitely the platform that I utilize the most. And if people send me a message, I'm happy to connect with them, happy to engage. I love meeting new people. It's probably one of my favorite things to do, and I have
Me
multiple
too.
meetings every day where I'm meeting just new, amazing people.
Oh, well, me too. And I'm so happy to have met you. And thank you for being on the show. You've been a fabulous guest. So,
Lyndsay, you
everyone,
are the best.
oh, my
Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe on YouTube or leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Have a great day, and thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. If you liked what you heard, please consider leaving a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would be ever so grateful. I hope you found it useful. Have a wonderful day.